It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview Kim Griffin, who is the head softball coach at Canisius College. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Can you talk about your coaching experience and where you got started at?
So I actually began my coaching experience here at Canisius. After graduating from undergrad, that was 2007, I started here as a volunteer. And then after a year as a volunteer, I became the graduate assistant. I was the GA for 3 years while I completed my master's degree. And then after that, I became the full-time assistant. So I kind of just climbed the ladder within the Canisius program. And then 7 years ago, I took over as head coach. So I was an assistant for 7 years, and then I'm now in my 7th season as head coach.
Can you talk about the 2014 season, whenever you started as the assistant coach and you were also in charge of like the recruitment and stuff?
Yeah, so as my career developed and as, I was at Canisius longer and longer, I had the privilege to work for Mike Rappl, who was the head coach here for over 30 years. He started the program back in 1977. And as I grew as a coach, he continued to give me more and more responsibilities. So I guess some of the biggest responsibilities became taking over the recruiting for the program. And he trained me for years and years. We recruited together, flying across the country and taking these trips together and really learning his system and how he recruited players to Canisius. And then I was able to take that over once I was a full-time assistant. So traveling on my own, recruiting players, having those discussions, always under his guidance. And he was always the final decision maker as a head coach, but it was a huge responsibility. And I think it really taught me how to build those relationships with student athletes in the recruiting process. And really how that's the most important part of the process is building that relationship, really getting to know each other, representing our program honestly, and helping them get to know us, and then us getting to know them and making sure that they're going to be the right fit for our program.
Can you talk about how you took some of the guidance from him and changed it to your own way of your own program?
Yeah, I do think Coach Rappl and I, we have very different personalities. And I think the one thing that I really learned from him was how to be detail-oriented. He is probably the most detail-oriented guy you're ever going to meet. And I've always kind of thought of myself, or I guess I've started to realize that I'm kind of like the big picture type of a thinker. So from him, I really learned how to be meticulous, how to be detail oriented, how to focus on all the little things, because he always said, if you focus on the little things, the big things take care of themselves. And I took those lessons from him and applied them in my own way. So not trying to be like him or not trying to be him, because we are very different, but also understanding that, he brought so many really, really great characteristics and probably the best work ethic I've ever seen out of a human being. And he taught me how to do that. So taking his lessons and all of the things that he was so good at and kind of making them my own was a big challenge. But ultimately, I think it's probably the best thing he could have done for me as a coach.
Can you talk about what you've accomplished as the head coach at Canisius?
Yeah, I think, it's easy to talk about the, winning a MAAC regular season, coaching MAAC players of the year, coaching, all-MAAC kids, all academic kids. Those types of things are easy to talk about, but I think the things that are a little deeper, the accomplishments that I'm the most proud of are when I look at the product that this program turns out, and that being our players, the kids that graduate and go on to do great things. They go on to medical school, pharmacy school, OT and PT school. They're in MBA programs. They're starting their own businesses. I think those are the accomplishments that when I look back at my career as a coach so far, those are the things that I'm most proud of, are the people that come out of here. So we spend a lot of time developing them, not just as softball players, not just as infielders and outfielders, pitchers and catchers, but as people, as leaders, as people that are going to go out into the community, out into the business world, and be great at whatever they choose to do.
Can you talk about the culture that you've built for the softball program over the years?
Yeah, so we have a 4-pillar system, I guess you would call it, and we use the acronym RACF: respect, accountability, commitment, and family. And every decision that we make as a coaching staff, all of the decisions that we put on our players to make, we always want them to use those 4 pillars to guide their decision making. And then the other thing that we kind of preach and live and talk about and really want to hone in on with them is understanding 2 things. One, having a team first mentality. So understanding that the goals of the team are going to come ahead of your own goals. And the decisions you make sometimes are going to feel, are going to be difficult because you have to make them based on being a team first player. And then the second kind of idea or thing that we really try to teach them is service leadership. So being a true leader isn't about having power over somebody else or always, making every decision, being the one that holds everyone accountable, but it really comes down to serving others. And if we have an upperclassmen group or a senior group that really buys into and understands service leadership, then we tend to have more success. We tend to have better team chemistry. So, RACF, respect, accountability, commitment, family, are those core pillars, but understanding a team first mentality and service leadership really are what, make this team special.
That's a wonderful cultural. Can you talk about some of the teams that you play in your conference?
Yeah, so I guess to me, the teams that we're always looking at, the teams that have been on top in the last few years, Monmouth is the first team that comes to mind. They are, a big athletic department, a big, strong team. They have great pitching, great coaches. So they've been, since they've joined the MAAC, they've been a powerhouse in our conference. Other schools that we're always, getting great competition from, Marist, Fairfield, Sienna's in the mix all the time. So the other schools are very similar to Canisius. We all are smaller private schools with a lot of the same ideals and values. But, going through this whole pandemic and losing our season last year, and we've come together as a coaching staff within the MAAC to really talk about how can we do what's right for our conference, how can we do what's right for our players. And as a group of head coaches within the MAAC, it's been really cool to get to work with them, not just compete against them, but to work with them toward the common goal of having a season this year, because we're looking at most likely conference only season. So it's been great to work with them and get to know them a little bit more. Some of them have been in the league for a long time, as long as I have. So we've known each other a long time. Some of them are new to the conference. So it's been a unique experience that we don't normally get to have, but a nice experience in that.
Can you talk about, of course, like as you prepare for this upcoming season, what are some of the challenges and difficulties that face you?
Yeah, so this season has been different than any other. I'm sure it's the same for every team across the country, and we're all facing unique challenges. This fall, I think one of the things that was the hardest for us that went against every, cell of my being as a coach was we had to stay in pods for a good chunk of the season. So I had to tell my girls, like, don't hang out with girls from the other pod. If you want to talk to them on the phone, that's fine. But we had to limit our contact. And so not doing all of the team building and all the stuff together as a group that we normally do, I think that was our hardest challenge this fall. Besides not playing games and being able to really compete, that was our biggest challenge, was kind of being separated and feeling like we weren't able to develop that team culture, chemistry as a big group. As the fall went on, we were able to do it a little bit, but it just, it didn't feel the same. Going into the spring, a couple challenges are going to be, normally we have, a 25 game non-conference schedule that prepares us for conference games. This year, we're not going to have that. So our first game is going to be a conference weekend. And we have some young players that are most likely going to be in starting roles. So going into a conference weekend and your first college game, I think is kind of daunting, but we're all in the same boat. So, we're all going to be dealing with that together. But I do think that whole team building process and being forced to be in smaller groups, that was probably our biggest challenge, but I'm confident that we'll overcome it. They're doing a great job keeping connected over the break. This break we have is the longest we've ever had. So our kids went home before Thanksgiving and they don't come back until February 1st. So that's a long time to be away, a long time to be separated from each other and not all working out together. So they're doing a good job of, keeping connected and doing what they can to be together as a team when they can't be together as a team.
With the season coming up, do you see that most of your teams will not play 3 days out of the week, like Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, versus like only play like maybe Friday?
So the schedule that we've built as a MAAC coaching staff is that we will play midweek games and we'll play weekend games. So our schedule is going to be condensed a bit. We've built a 40-game conference-only schedule that every other week has midweeks built in. So we will be playing 4 games, so Saturday and Sunday, doubleheader Saturday, doubleheader Sunday, and then every other week we'll have midweek doubleheaders as well. So the schedule that we've built starts weekend of March 20th and goes through the beginning of May. So it's a lot of games in a short amount of time.
Can you talk about the recruitment process and what that's like at Canisius?
Yeah, so that's another thing that has totally changed this year. We haven't been out recruiting in almost a year, which feels actually kind of crazy. So we've been doing a ton of Zoom calls and watching live stream games, all of that virtual recruiting that we've been forced to do. But typically the recruiting process starts in a player's, we'll start watching players in their freshman and sophomore years. We can't have any contact with them or talk to them because of the new recruiting rules. But really what we're trying to do is just get to know them as players, watch them on the field as much as possible, see their interactions with their teammates. Once we can start having interactions with them, the most important thing to me and the thing that we always talk about is it's a two-way process. So it's not just about me recruiting them, it's about them recruiting us and knowing that we're the right fit for them and they're the right fit for us. So we spend a lot of time getting to know them. We always bring kids in on visits. We want them to get to know our team as much as possible. And that's really, I think, probably the part about this process that has been the hardest, besides not seeing them play, is typically once girls get on campus and they hang out with our team, they want to come here because they're just a fun group. They make you want to be a part of what they're doing, which is great. It makes my job a lot easier. But from a coaching standpoint, we're really looking to identify these kids. Are they going to be a fit in all 3 parts or components of being a student athlete? Are you an athletic fit for us? Do you play the positions that we need? Do you, fit the athletic profile that we're looking for? Do you bring speed? Do you bring power? Do you bring both? And then on the academic side, that's a big piece of the puzzle. Is like, we want kids here that want a major that we have. We want them to come here to get a degree that they want, that they're going to use. So, I have a kid call and say, I really want to be a nurse. Well, we don't have a nursing program. So it's not that I say you can't come here. There's ways to get you to that field. But the idea is that we're the right fit for them, right? So that academic piece has to be there. It has to match. We need to have kids that are going to be able to handle the rigors of being at a tough academic school, along with being a Division I athlete. So, the athletic piece has to fit, the academic piece has to fit, and then that culture piece has to fit. We need to know that these kids are going to understand being a team first player and really are going to buy into service leadership. And those are those culture pieces that are most important. So that is a big part of it, trying to get to know these kids and make sure they fit into those 3 pillars or those 3 parts of being a student athlete. and trying to figure that out before they get here. So that is a challenge, I think, for all coaches in the recruiting process, but it's a fun challenge getting to know these kids and figuring out who's going to be right for your program.
That's wonderful. Can you talk about, of course, the official visit and what that's like before COVID happened?
Yeah, official visits are fun. You know, we try to bring in the whole class on the same weekend. We're limited to 48 hours on campus. So, you know, it's usually a whirlwind weekend where we're getting kids from the airport and we're, you know, it's just kind of crazy. But what we like to do is we like to get them into a couple of classes because we want them to feel that, you know, student experience. They stay on campus with our girls. They stay in one of the dorms. We typically will go to Niagara Falls. It's only, you know, 20 minutes from campus. So we'll do the tourist thing and go check out Niagara Falls. Buffalo has some amazing restaurants. So, you know, big group meal is always on the agenda. If there's home games going on, we'll do a home ice hockey game. We'll do a home basketball game. Really, the whole idea is for them to get just a snapshot picture of this is what your life will be like when you're here. It's hard to do in 48 hours, but two things for me. I really like spending a lot of time with the recruit and their parents. But the biggest thing is having them spend time with the girls, just being in the dorms with them, going and eating with them, going to class. Like that interaction is the most important thing on the official visit.
Do they get to try on the dark blue gold jerseys?
So we haven't done uniform try on during official visits. I think that's kind of been like a more recent trend in the last few years of doing, you know, like a photo shoot and getting those jerseys on them. We typically don't do that. It's not something I'm opposed to. It just hasn't, you know, become a part of our regular, activity, but something I'd consider doing.
What advice would you give upcoming high school athletes looking to play college softball?
So one thing I always tell players is there is a school for everybody. If you want to play college softball, there is somewhere that you can go and play and be successful. So I always kind of encourage them to keep an open mind and a lot of kids get really set on Division I. I want to play Division I, and then it doesn't always work out. So that's something that is so important to me that they understand is that there's a place for them to play. Be recruitable. So by that, I mean, make sure that your grades are in line, make sure that you're doing well academically, because, you know, we can only go so far with a student athlete academically. We need to make sure that they're going to, one, get into the school. It helps if they can get some academic aid, just to make it easier on us from a budgeting standpoint. But being prepared academically is so important. I can't stress that enough. And making sure they're taking the right classes, that when they get here, they're going to be prepared. The other thing I would say to these student athletes is coaches get a lot of emails. Every day my inbox is full of emails from players. The kids that stick out to me are the ones that talk to me directly. So instead of sending a blanket email, they're addressing just me or everyone on the staff. And that they've done a little bit of research and they tell me what they like about Canisius. If I get an email that just says, I'm really interested in your program, I know that email probably went out to 100 coaches. If I get an email that says, you know, I'm really interested in your education program, I'm really interested in your business program, I did research on the school, like that to me draws my attention in. I know that Canisius is actually of interest to them. And that's going to make me watch their video clips that they send. And from there, that continued communication is so important. Sorry. You know, if you send me one email and then you don't email me back for 6 months, I don't always know if you have that genuine interest. But those kids that reach out that say, you know, can we set up a phone call? Can we set up a Zoom? This is what I'm doing. You know, those kids really are the ones that stay on our list. And that then when we do get to go out recruiting, those are the kids that we really make a priority to go and see.
That's wonderful advice. What advice would you give upcoming college coaches looking to get into the industry?
Ooh, that's a good question. One, I would say sometimes, and it's not right that this is the case, but sometimes you have to work for free to gain experience. And I think that's somewhere where our game can grow. We as a coaching group in the NFCA, we push to have a fourth paid paid coach on staff, and we didn't get it. But we were really looking to grow opportunities for people to get into coaching and not have to work for free. But sometimes that's a part of it. I look back on my first year as a volunteer coach, and that was a year I learned so much. And I had to have another job and kind of grind and really, kind of be worn out by it. But it was so worth it because it then opened a lot of doors for me to be a GA, to be a full-time assistant. I think the other thing is being a coach is really a true test in leadership. And you develop those things over time. You develop your own leadership identity, but you really start to understand that you can't make everybody happy. So, people are going to criticize, people are going to always have ideas that they think are better. But what it really comes down to is figuring out your identity as a coach, as a leader, having those core principles and values that you stick to. And that gives you the confidence when you have to make that hard decision to know that you made it in the best interest of the team. And to know that there's always going to be critics, and you have to kind of have a bit of a thick skin. And there's some that you can listen to and should listen to, but sometimes it's important to know how to tune things out as well.
That's wonderful advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media along with Canisius Softball?
So we're at Griff Softball on Instagram, Twitter. I'm not a big Twitter person. I don't have my own Twitter handle, but I'm at kgriff32 on Instagram. And that's my personal Instagram, but so you'll get a little snapshot of me as a human, not just a coach. But at Griff Softball on Twitter and Instagram is where all the great content is.
Thank you again, Coach Kim, for your interview, and best of luck in your future with Canisius.
Thank you so much for having me, Brandon. Have a great day.
You too. You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Coach Kim, for your interview, and best of luck.
Thank you.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.